Rain slammed against the windshield like 1,000 tiny fists, angry and relentless. Each drop burst apart, racing down the glass, as if the sky itself was crying. The world outside blurred into gray. Streets drowned, lights flickered, and silence fought the storm. Behind the wheel, Luke Carter drove through the flooded boulevard, his luxury car slicing through chaos. 3 sleepless days of meetings, money, and fake smiles had drained him dry. Tonight, even the rain sounded richer than his success. The road was empty, and so was he. He adjusted the rear-view mirror and sighed. In his early 40s, Luke had everything people dreamed of: a business empire, cars that gleamed like silver, and a mansion on the city's richest hill. But tonight, none of it felt like success. The road was empty, and so was he. His chest carried a weight no luxury could lift. As he turned the final corner, the tall iron gates of his mansion appeared through the mist. They opened slowly, recognizing his car like an obedient guard dog. Luke eased off the gas, ready to escape the rain and the world. But just then, something caught his eye. 2 figures huddled beneath the old oak tree outside his walls. They were standing close, soaked from head to toe. Luke frowned. He slowed the car, squinting through the storm. Under the tree, an old man and woman clung to each other. Their gray hair was plastered to their faces, their clothes heavy with rain. At their feet rested a battered leather suitcase, the kind people used decades ago. He almost ignored them. It wasn't his problem. The city was full of people with troubles, and he'd learned long ago to mind his own business. But something about them, maybe the way the man sheltered the woman with his own body, made him pause. He sat there, the engine humming, wipers thrashing. The rain blurred his vision, but not enough to hide the truth. These weren't beggars or wanderers. There was grace in their stance, a quiet dignity that didn't belong to the street. The old man lifted his head and looked straight at Luke's car. Their eyes met through the storm. Even from a distance, Luke felt something stir inside him. Something human, something he thought he'd buried long ago. "Not my business," he muttered, and reached for the gear shift. But his hand froze. He couldn't move. He didn't understand why. Then the woman began to cough. The sound was faint, but it carried through the rain like a cry for help. That single sound broke through his cold logic. He turned off the car, grabbed an umbrella, and stepped into the downpour. The rain was icy, soaking through his shoes instantly. Each step toward the couple felt like walking through years of walls he'd built around his heart. The old man straightened as Luke approached, his instinct making him stand protectively in front of the woman. "Good evening," Luke said, raising his voice over the rain. "Are you two all right?" The man hesitated before answering. "We're fine, sir, just waiting out the storm." Luke frowned. "Waiting where?" "Here," the woman said softly, her voice trembling. "We have nowhere else to go. We were evicted today. We couldn't find shelter." Luke felt his chest tighten. The word evicted echoed in his mind like a bell. Memories flashed. His own childhood. His mother crying over bills. The day they almost lost their home. "Evicted from where?" he asked gently. "From the house we lived in for decades," the old man replied, trying to sound calm. "We couldn't keep up with the payments." Luke hesitated, then asked quietly, "And your family? Your children?" The silence that followed was heavy. The woman looked down, and even through the rain, Luke could see tears mixing with raindrops on her face. "Our son has his own life," the man said finally. "We didn't want to be a burden." Luke's heart clenched. He knew what it felt like to be left behind, to have people love your success, but not your soul. "What are your names?" he asked. "I'm James," the man said, extending a calloused but steady hand. "And this is my wife, Aurora. We've been married almost 50 years. Luke blinked. 50 years? James nodded. "Half a century, sir. Through storms and sunshine." Luke swallowed hard. 50 years with one person. He couldn't imagine that. His own life was filled with empty dinners, short romances, and long silences. "You can't stay here," Luke said. "It's dangerous in this weather. Come with me. You can stay at my house tonight." James looked shocked. "Sir, you don't even know us." "You seem kind," Luke said simply. "And no one deserves to be out here." Aurora tried to smile, but her lips trembled. "We don't want to trouble you." "Please," Luke said. "Grab your things." James picked up the suitcase, holding it close like it carried a lifetime. The three of them walked through the rain toward the gate. When they entered the mansion, warmth and silence wrapped around them. Susan, the housekeeper, appeared in the hallway, eyes wide. She had worked for Luke 15 years and had never seen him bring guests home, especially ones who looked like they belonged to another world. "Susan," Luke said, setting down his umbrella, "prepare the guest room upstairs. And please, make some hot tea. They're freezing." "Sir," she hesitated, unsure. "I'm serious," Luke said firmly. "And see if we have some dry clothes that might fit them." James and Aurora stood near the doorway, dripping water on the marble floor. They looked around at the giant staircase, the glowing chandelier, the paintings on the wall. Everything felt far away from their world. "Please make yourselves at home," Luke said awkwardly. He realized as he said it that the word home meant nothing inside these walls. "Mr. Carter," Aurora said softly, tears in her eyes, "we don't know how to thank you. It's been a long time since anyone treated us kindly." Luke's throat tightened. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "It's the right thing to do." James shook his head. "No, sir. It's more than that. We asked for help all day. You were the only one who looked at us like people." Luke didn't know what to say. For years, people had looked at him only for money, favors, or power. No one had seen him as just Luke. Maybe that's why their words hit him so deep. Susan returned with towels and clothes. "The room is ready, sir," she said, though her tone was cold. "Thank you, Susan. You can rest now." When she left, Luke guided them upstairs. James held Aurora's arm, moving slowly, carefully. There was so much love in that small gesture that Luke felt a strange ache in his heart. "Rest well," he said softly. "Good night, Mr. Carter," Aurora whispered. "God bless you." Luke stood in the hallway long after their door closed. His mansion felt different now, warmer somehow. For the first time in years, he felt peace. Not the peace of silence or money, but the peace that comes when you do something right. He went to bed, but he couldn't sleep. Their faces stayed in his mind, along with that old suitcase. It looked too precious to be ordinary. Something about it made him curious. Morning came gently, with sunlight sneaking through the curtains. For once, Luke woke to sound. Soft voices, laughter, clinking dishes. His house wasn't empty anymore. Downstairs, he found James and Aurora sitting at the kitchen table, enjoying breakfast. Susan served them reluctantly, her face tight with disapproval. "Good morning," Luke said with a small smile. Aurora looked up and smiled back, her eyes bright. "Good morning, Mr. Carter. We weren't sure if we should come down. Susan made us tea." Susan cleared her throat. "Sir, I need to talk to you." "Later, Susan," Luke said gently. "Please, sit and relax." He poured himself a cup of coffee and sat across from the couple. It felt strange. He couldn't remember the last time he had shared breakfast with anyone. "So," he said, "tell me about yourselves. How did this happen?" James exchanged a glance with Aurora, then sighed deeply. "It's a long story, sir. I hardly know where to begin." "Start at the beginning," Luke said softly. James nodded. "I'm a civil engineer. I spent my life building schools, clinics, and shelters for children. My dream was to make this world a little better. Aurora used to teach in one of those schools." Aurora smiled faintly. "We loved what we did, even when it didn't pay much." James continued, "We had a simple life. We weren't rich, but we were happy. Then came the recession. The projects stopped. I lost my contracts. Our savings vanished, trying to pay medical bills." He paused, eyes wet. "Aurora got sick 2 years ago. We sold almost everything for her treatment. When the money ran out, we sold the house. We thought our son would help, but—" His voice broke. "He said he was too busy. He stopped answering our calls." Silence filled the room. Even Susan, standing by the counter, looked down. Luke felt something deep shift. Inside him, he'd spent years chasing wealth and status, believing that money was the measure of success. But these two, who had almost nothing, had more love, patience, and faith than he'd ever known. Aurora reached for her husband's hand. "We only took what we could fit in that suitcase," she said softly. "It holds our memories, letters, photos, little pieces of our life together." Luke's eyes moved to the suitcase by the door. It looked small and old, yet it seemed to carry the weight of a lifetime. He swallowed hard. "You've lost so much," he said quietly. James smiled faintly. "We've lost things, yes, but not each other. And that's what matters." Those words hit Luke like sunlight breaking through clouds. He looked around his grand house, the marble floors, the empty halls, the expensive art, and for the first time, it all looked meaningless. That evening, he asked Susan to prepare a special dinner. They ate together, laughed, and shared stories. The house that once echoed with silence now hummed with warmth. When the couple went to sleep, Luke stood by the window, watching the rain start again. Gentle this time, almost tender. He realized something important. All his life, he had built walls of money, pride, and loneliness, thinking they would protect him. But tonight, two strangers had walked through those walls with nothing but kindness and a suitcase full of memories. Sometimes, life doesn't need another mansion, deal, or car. It needs one open door. Because the smallest act of compassion can rescue not only those in need, but also the one who gives it. James sipped his tea slowly, eyes drifting to the window where the sunlight touched the rain-soaked garden. "I built 18 public schools," he said quietly, "across poor rural towns where kids once studied under broken roofs. I built a dozen small hospitals in places no one else cared about, and 6 shelters for homeless children, all still running today." Luke froze, the coffee halfway to his lips. He almost choked. This wasn't just an old man down on his luck. This was someone who had spent his life building things that mattered. Aurora smiled softly, taking her husband's hand. "He never did it for fame," she said. "And I was always his partner. I taught music, sometimes in classrooms, sometimes on the street. I started 3 community choirs. We brought children from slums to perform in theaters." Her eyes glowed faintly. "Music heals the soul," she whispered. "I watched shy, broken children transform the moment they realized they could create beauty." Luke leaned forward, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "But what happened?" he asked gently. "How did things turn so bad?" James sighed. the air leaving him like wind from an old sail. "Our son," he said bitterly. "Ryan. He was ashamed of what we did. Said we were foolish, wasting time on people who didn't deserve help. He wanted me to build shopping malls and office towers, the kind that make money." Aurora's voice trembled. "He became a lawyer, a very successful one, married into a wealthy family, but they were embarrassed by us, by our simple clothes, our community projects. He said people like us didn't fit in his world." James looked down. "One day he told us not to mention we were his parents. Said our work made him look bad in front of clients." The words hit Luke like a punch. He couldn't breathe for a second. He had seen greed before, but this was something colder. Cruelty wearing a designer suit. Silence filled the kitchen, heavy and painful. Aurora's eyes glistened with tears. "Years went by with barely a call," she whispered. "Then I got sick." "Sick?" Luke asked quickly, concern clear in his voice. She nodded. "A heart condition. It's treatable, but expensive." James added, "We reached out to Ryan, not for money. We just wanted to be closer, in case time was short. We wanted to know our grandson." "You have a grandson?" Luke asked softly. "Yes," Aurora said, a faint smile returning. "Andrew, sweet boy. But Ryan never let us see him. Said he didn't want his son growing up with bad examples." Luke clenched his fists under the table. He couldn't believe it. How could anyone treat their parents like that? Aurora's voice broke. "We kept trying. We lost the house when the medical bills piled up. We called Ryan one last time, hoping for help. He said we made our choices, and now we had to live with them." Then he hung up. James let out a bitter laugh. That's his favorite line. Face the consequences. He said we spent our lives helping strangers instead of saving money, and now it was time to pay. Aurora wiped her eyes. "He told people we were unstable, that we made bad decisions. That's why no one helped when we were evicted. We spent 3 nights on the street before you stopped your car." "3 nights?" Luke whispered. "Yes," Aurora said. "And you know what hurts most? Not the hunger. Not the cold. It's that we built homes for hundreds of children who had none. But our own son couldn't give us one corner of his." The words hit Luke deep in the heart. He had never felt such a mix of anger and sorrow. For a moment, no one spoke. Even Susan, who stood quietly in the corner, wiped her eyes. Finally, Luke took a breath. "May I see the suitcase you brought?" he asked gently. "It seemed important to you." James hesitated. "Why?" "Because last night," Luke said, "you held it like it carried your whole life." The couple exchanged a look. Then James nodded. "Aurora, dear, bring it." She left the room and returned with the worn brown suitcase. She placed it on the table and opened it carefully, as if she were unlocking a chest of memories. Inside were old photographs, yellowed letters, newspaper clippings, and certificates. Luke leaned in, his breath caught in his throat. "These are the children from our shelters," Aurora said, her voice soft but proud. "Every one of them found a family. We kept their photos." James pointed to another bundle. "These are graduations from the schools we built. Thousands of children who now have an education because of our projects." Luke picked up a letter written in a child's messy handwriting. It said, "Uncle James and Aunt Aurora, thank you for building our school. Now I can read and write. One day, I'll help other kids like you helped me." He blinked back tears. Aurora smiled through her emotion. "We kept every letter, every thank you. They remind us that our life mattered." James nodded. "That suitcase holds proof that we did something good. That we weren't useless." Luke's heart ached. These two had built a legacy of kindness that would last generations. Yet now all they had left was a single suitcase. And each other. Aurora hesitated, then reached for an old yellowed envelope tucked at the bottom. "There's one more thing," she said softly. "Something you might want to see." "What is it?" Luke asked. "A thank you letter from a boy we helped long ago," Aurora said, smiling faintly. "His mother was sick. He was so small then, maybe 8. We never forgot him." She handed the envelope to Luke. He frowned, noticing the faded handwriting. His hands trembled as he read the name on the front. Luke Carter. His breath caught. He opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a letter written in a child's hand. "Dear Uncle James and Aunt Aurora, thanks you for helping my mom when she was sick. You were our angels. One day I'll be rich and help other kids the way you helped me. Luke Carter, age 8. Luke's world went still. His voice cracked. "My God," he whispered. "How do you have this?" For the first time, James and Aurora smiled warmly. "Because," Aurora said gently, "we kept it. Fate has a way of bringing the right people back together." Luke's hands shook as he stared at the letter. The same words he'd written decades ago after his mother's recovery. Memories flooded back. A small boy holding wildflowers, a woman on a hospital bed, music drifting through the halls. "You built that hospital," Luke said, tears filling his eyes. "The one where my mother got treated." James nodded softly. "Caroline Carter," he said. "Brave woman, fought hard to live. And you, little Luke, never left her side." Aurora smiled. "You used to bring flowers every day. You said they'd help her heal faster." Luke closed his eyes. "I remember now. I remember everything." He looked at them, overwhelmed. "You saved my mother's life. And now you're here, needing help yourselves." James smiled faintly. "Life's funny. We plant seeds, never knowing when they'll grow." The room was quiet again. Susan finally spoke, her voice shaky. "Mr. Carter, there's a man at the door. Says he's here to see these two." Luke frowned. "Who is it?" "An attorney," Susan said hesitantly. "He says his name is Ryan Sanders, claims to be their son." Aurora gasped. James's face paled. Luke stood up quickly. "What does he want?" Susan swallowed. "He said he's here to take them. I overheard something about a facility for seniors." Luke's anger flared. "A facility?" His voice rose. "He wants to send his own parents away like they're strangers?" James placed a calm hand on his shoulder. "Let us speak to him. We don't want to cause you trouble." Luke shook his head. "You're not going anywhere. This is my home. And you're my guests." They walked to the foyer together. Ryan stood there in an expensive gray suit, polished shoes, and an impatient expression. A woman beside him, clearly his wife, looked uncomfortable, glancing around the grand hallway. "Mom, Dad," Ryan said coldly. "Let's go. You're creating a scene. The neighbors are talking." Aurora's lips trembled. "Creating a scene?" "Ryan, we weren't begging. We just needed shelter." "Same thing," Ryan said sharply. "Do you have any idea what this does to my reputation? People are saying my parents are homeless." James straightened, his old dignity returning. "We were never homeless, son. Just lost for a while." Ryan ignored him. "You're coming with me. I've arranged a private facility where you'll be cared for, properly." "Facility?" Luke cut in, voice low and firm. "You mean an institution?" Ryan turned, surprised. "And who exactly are you?" "I'm Luke Carter," he said evenly. "The man who gave your parents shelter when you wouldn't." The color drained from Ryan's face. "My parents are my responsibility," he said defensively. "They've always made poor choices. They gave everything away to strangers. Now, they have to deal with the consequences." Luke stepped closer, eyes burning. "Consequences? You call saving lives a bad choice? They built schools, hospitals, and shelters for people like me. Your parents gave me a future when I had none." Ryan blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" Luke pulled out the yellowed letter and handed it to him. "Read it," he said. "That boy you helped so many years ago, that was me. The sick woman you saved was my mother." Ryan's mouth opened, but no words came. "These people," Luke said quietly, "gave everything so kids like me could have hope. And you, their own son, abandoned them. What have you built, Ryan? A career? A name? They built lives." Aurora's eyes filled with tears. Beatrice, Ryan's wife, covered her mouth, ashamed. James stood tall beside his wife, his voice calm but firm. "We're proud of what we built, Ryan, even if it cost us everything." Ryan's head dropped. For the first time, the mask of arrogance cracked. His voice came out small. I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," Luke said. "But now you do, and you'll live with that." Silence hung in the grand hall. The storm outside had quieted. Only the soft patter of rain remained, as if the world itself was listening. Aurora reached out and touched her son's cheek. "We forgive you," she whispered. "Not because you deserve it, but because holding anger hurts more." Ryan's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry," he choked out. "I was wrong." For a moment, time stopped. A sun breaking, a mother healing, and a stranger watching it all with quiet awe. Luke stepped back, emotion flooding him. This was the moment life gave back what kindness had planted decades ago. Kindness never dies. It waits, hidden in time, in people, in moments. The good we give always finds its way back, even through storms, even through years. Sometimes the heart you save as a stranger is the same heart that saves you one day. The saints, huh? Now I'm supposed to fix it? Aurora began to cry softly. Hearing her own son talk that way broke her heart. "Ryan," she said through tears, "we never asked you for anything. We only wanted to be near family." "Near family?" He laughed, sharp and bitter. "You want our money, just like you wanted other people's money for your projects." "That's not true," James said, voice tight with held anger. "We never asked you for a single cent." "You didn't need to," Ryan snapped. "You showed up like vagrants. My colleagues know my parents are destitute. That hurts, me professionally." Luke felt anger rise like lava. This man cared more about image than his parents' pain. "So, what's your solution?" Luke asked, steady but fierce. "I arranged a spot at a nursing facility," Ryan said. "Discreet, out of town. They'll have proper medical care." "Out of town?" Aurora repeated, horrified. "You want to hide us?" "I want you to get the care you need," Ryan lied. His eyes slid away. Beatrice finally spoke, voice low and embarrassed. "Ryan, maybe we should talk this through." "There's nothing to discuss," he cut in. "The decision is made." That was when Luke made a decision of his own. "They're not going anywhere," he said. "As I said, James and Aurora will stay here as long as they wish." Ryan gave a cold, contemptuous laugh. "You barely know them. You have no idea what kind of people you're inviting into your life." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," Luke replied, meeting his eyes. "I'm dealing with the people who saved my mother's life when I was 8. The ones who built the hospital that healed her. The words hit Ryan like a body blow. He hadn't expected a personal link. Your parents are heroes, Luke continued. If you can't see that, the problem is yours, not theirs. Heroes? Ryan sneered. Heroes don't end up on the street. They do, Luke shot back, calm but cutting. When they have an ungrateful son who cares more about appearances than character. Tension crackled in the foyer like static before lightning. Beatrice tugged Ryan's sleeve, trying to calm him. Ryan, let's go, she whispered. We can talk at home. There's nothing to talk about, he repeated, though his steel was fading. My parents are coming with me. They're not, Luke said, voice steady. Unless they want to, and I'm sure they don't. All eyes turned to James and Aurora. The couple shared a long look, a quiet language built over decades. Ryan, James said at last, heavy with sorrow, you've made it clear you're ashamed of us, that our presence harms your life. We won't trouble you. No, Dad, Ryan started. James lifted a hand. You made your choice when you left us in the street. Now we make ours. And what is your choice? Ryan asked, clinging to authority. To stay with people who treat us like human beings, Aurora said, wiping tears. People who see the value in what we built. Ryan flushed, anger reddening his face. You'll regret this when this man gets tired of you. Don't come looking for me. We won't, James said. You made that perfectly clear. Ryan, Beatrice pleaded, now openly emotional. Please, let's talk at home. Your parents don't deserve this. Be quiet, Beatrice, Ryan snapped. You don't understand anything. His harshness toward his wife revealed more than he knew. Luke saw it. Clearly, Beatrice was hurting in that marriage too. Mr. Sanders, Luke said calmly, I suggest you leave my property. Your parents have answered you. This isn't over, Ryan said, jaw tight. I'll take legal action. Be my guest, Luke replied. But understand this. Your parents are under my protection. Ryan stormed out, dragging Beatrice behind him. Before getting into the car, she glanced back and gave a small, discreet wave. A tiny kindness that no one missed. When the car disappeared, Aurora collapsed against James. She cried out all the tears she'd tried to hold. We've lost our son, she sobbed. We've lost our family. You haven't, Luke said, placing a steady hand on her shoulder. You've gained a new family, one that sees your worth. James looked at Luke with boundless gratitude. Why are you doing this for us? He asked quietly. Because you did it for me when I was a kid, Luke said simply. And because it's the right thing to do. At that moment, Susan stepped forward, her face transformed. Mr. Carter, she asked gently, may I make a special lunch to celebrate? Celebrate what, Susan? Luke asked. The fact, she said with a soft smile, that this house finally has a real family. For the first time in 15 years, Luke felt his mansion become a home. Warmth spread through rooms that had only known silence. The days that followed brought a strange, healing peace. Halls echoed with conversation and soft laughter. Aurora hummed while helping Susan in the kitchen. The housekeeper, once resistant, now treated the couple like family. Their kindness had disarmed her completely. Luke canceled several meetings to stay close. He wanted to hear their stories, each one revealing the size of their impact on thousands of lives. One sunny afternoon, a shocking truth surfaced. They were on the veranda, cups warm in their hands. James, Luke said softly, tell me about business owners you helped. Over the years, were there many? There were many, the old man answered, a nostalgic smile forming. We believed that helping good people multiplies good. Anyone in particular? Luke asked. There's one I'll never forget, James said. A young owner on the brink of bankruptcy, 15 years ago. Family company. Many workers depended on him. He was desperate. Luke felt a jolt in his chest. 15 years ago, he repeated, almost afraid to ask. Yes, James said. The company was called Carter Construction. The young man was the son of that wonderful woman we treated at the hospital, Caroline. Luke's cup rattled and spilled on the table. Carter Construction was his company. James stopped, eyes wide. Your company? He asked. Yes, Luke breathed. 15 years ago I was going under. Past due loans. Layoffs looming. I was losing everything after my mother died. Oh my, Aurora whispered, joining them, hand to her heart. So you're the young man James helped anonymously. Helped how? Luke asked, stunned. I never knew about any help. James exchanged a look with Aurora. We used our savings, he said quietly, to pay off your bank loans. We did it through lawyers, no names attached. We wanted you to believe you'd done it yourself. You saved my company, Luke whispered. We did, because we believed in your character, James said. You kept every employee on, even when you couldn't afford payroll. You would rather go hungry than fire people. That told us who you were. But the money, where did it come from? Luke asked, shaken. It was everything we had, Aurora said simply. Our retirement. The savings of a lifetime. But it was worth it to watch you grow the company. Luke stared at them, unable to process it. You spent everything to save my business. Why? Because we promised your mother, James answered, voice tender. In her last days at the hospital, she asked us to look out for you, if anything happened to her. Tears blurred Luke's vision. His life tilted under the weight of the truth. He wasn't the self-made giant he'd believed. He had been carried by two people who gave everything for him. So you lost your money to help me, he said, voice breaking. And that's why you're struggling now. Don't see it like that, Aurora pleaded. See it as an investment that paid off. You became successful. You created jobs. You helped families. But you were left with nothing, Luke said, devastated. We were left with the peace of keeping our promise, James replied, serene. That was enough. Just then, Susan hurried onto the veranda, worry in her eyes. Mr. Carter, she said. Someone is at the door asking for Mr. and Mrs. Sanders. He says he's their grandson. Aurora went pale. Andrew, she whispered. My grandson. Andrew. Yes, ma'am, Susan said. Aurora stood trembling, hands to her chest. My boy, she breathed. After all these years. They went to the front door. A young man of about 20 waited there, nervous but determined. Tall, dark hair, sharp eyes that looked like Aurora's. He wore simple clothes and carried a worn backpack. Grandma, Grandpa, he said, voice thick with emotion. Andrew, Aurora cried, running to him. She wrapped him in a trembling hug and sobbed. James pulled him in too, eyes wet and shining. How did you find us? Aurora asked. I've been looking for you for 3 months, he said. When I learned Dad abandoned you, I left home to search. I checked shelters, hospitals, churches. I even slept on the street some nights. You left home? James asked, worry cutting through joy. I couldn't live under the same roof with a man who abandoned his parents, Andrew said. I won't be part of that. Luke watched, moved to the core. At last, someone in the family who understood their worth. Andrew, this is Luke, Aurora said, smiling through tears. The angel who took us in when we had nowhere to go." The young man stepped to Luke, gratitude bright in his eyes. "Sir, I don't know how to thank you for caring for my grandparents." "They've been caring for me my whole life," Luke said gently. "Andrew," James asked, voice soft, "how did you get away? Does your mother know?" Andrew lowered his head. "Mom doesn't know I'm here. Dad forbade any contact with you. He said you were problem people, an embarrassment." "And you believed him?" Aurora asked, hurt but hopeful. "Never," Andrew said firmly. "I remember you from when I was little. The stories, the clinics, the children you helped. Dad may have forgotten, but I never did." He pulled a worn notebook from his backpack. "I kept everything you gave me," he said, opening it with care. "Programs from your choir shows, photos from the shelter, notes you wrote me when I was scared." Aurora covered her mouth, tears spilling again. James's hands trembled as he touched the notebook. "You kept these," James whispered. "Of course," Andrew said. "You taught me what real success is. Not money, not reputation. It's the lives you lift." Luke felt something settle right then. A truth that filled the house like light after a storm. Family wasn't blood alone. Family was love that stayed. He looked at James. He looked at Aurora. He looked at Andrew, brave and faithful. And he knew what he had to do. The late afternoon light spilled softly through the tall windows of Luke's mansion, painting gold streaks across the marble floor. Aurora sat at the dining table with her trembling hands over a worn notebook. Beside it lay a small pile of old drawings, faded music sheets, and handwritten stories, their edges yellowed with time. "Drawings, stories, music sheets," Grandma wrote, Andrew said quietly, spreading them open. His fingers were gentle, as if afraid to break the fragile paper. Aurora blinked through tears. "You saved all this?" she whispered, her voice shaking. "I did," Andrew said, meeting her eyes, "because I knew I'd find you again, and because some things deserve to be kept safe. Like hope." The room went still. Even Susan paused at the doorway, watching the tender moment. Luke leaned forward, his tone warm but steady. "Andrew," he said softly, "your grandparents can stay here as long as they want. And so can you." The young man's face softened with gratitude, but hesitation flickered in his eyes. "Mr. Carter," he began carefully, "there's something I need to tell you. Something about my father. He isn't finished. He's planning something. Against all of you." Luke's smile vanished. "What kind of something?" Andrew took a breath. "I overheard him talking to other lawyers. He's trying to get a court order to have Grandma and Grandpa declared unfit and taken away. He wants to prove they can't care for themselves." James and Aurora exchanged a terrified look, their fingers intertwining on the table. "There's more," Andrew said, pulling a folder from his backpack. "It's about an inheritance, something he's trying to control." "Inheritance?" Aurora asked, confused. "We don't have anything left." "You do," Andrew said. "Great-grandfather Benjamin left about 124 acres in the city's commercial district, land worth more than $20 million now." The room went silent. Andrew continued, "Dad can only touch it if he proves you're incapacitated, or wins legal guardianship." The revelation hit like thunder. Ryan's cruelty suddenly made terrible sense. "So, that's why he's so desperate," Luke murmured. "He wants legal control, to steal what's yours." "Exactly," Andrew nodded. "He's already moving fast. Here, look at these." Luke took the papers, his brow tightening as he read through the pages. "My God," he whispered. "He's orchestrating an entire setup." James leaned forward. What do they say? Luke exhaled. He's planning to claim you both suffer from age-related mental issues. He's even bribed doctors to write fake reports. Aurora's hand flew to her mouth. James's face paled. Ryan's malice seemed boundless. He wasn't only after money, he was ready to destroy his parents' dignity for it. We won't let that happen, Luke said firmly. Not while I'm breathing. Sir, Andrew warned. My father has powerful connections. Judges, doctors, business partners. He might still pull it off. Then we'll have to be smarter, Luke replied. And faster. Aurora took a shaky breath. There's one thing that might help, she said softly. My medical condition. What about it? Luke asked gently. It's severe, she admitted. The doctor said I only have months, if I don't get proper treatment. That's why we lost our home. We spent everything on medicine. Silence fell. The urgency felt heavier than the walls around them. Luke realized this fight wasn't just legal. It was a fight for time, for life. He stood, grabbed his phone, and called his attorney. Austin Lemons, he said when the line picked up. I need you at my house. Now. Austin Lemons was one of the best criminal defense lawyers in the city. A sharp, calm man with steel-gray eyes that missed nothing. Within an hour, he was sitting at Luke's table, reading the documents Andrew had brought. This is ugly, Austin said, flipping through the pages. Ryan has built a web of lies. Doctors willing to falsify reports. Lawyers ready to file false affidavits. It's a complex conspiracy. Can we stop it? Luke asked. We can, Austin said. But it'll be a fight. He has friends in the system. We'll need solid proof. Something undeniable. James, who had been silent, spoke up. We have something. Documentation of every donation we've ever made. Every school, clinic, and shelter. Each one recorded, notarized, and verified. Austin looked up surprised. You kept all that? James nodded, pulling a heavy envelope from the suitcase. Austin opened it and froze. Good Lord, he whispered. You donated over $15 million to social projects in 40 years. Aurora smiled faintly. We never told anyone. Charity isn't about being seen. It's about doing what's right. Austin closed the file slowly. This changes everything. People with impaired minds don't manage philanthropic networks with this kind of precision. It proves competence, compassion, and legacy. James reached again into the suitcase. There's more. Letters. From mayors, governors, even the president. All thanking us for our work. Austin sat back, shaking his head in awe. You two are remarkable. Andrew stepped closer, emotion trembling in his voice. Grandpa, I never knew you were this important. James chuckled softly. We never wanted to be important, son. We only wanted to be useful. Just then, Susan burst into the room, breathless. Mr. Carter, something's wrong outside. Cars. They've been parked for hours, watching the house. Everyone hurried to the window. Across the quiet street, 3 unmarked cars sat in strategic positions. Inside, silhouettes watched through tinted glass. Dad's watching us, Andrew whispered. He might be planning a forced pickup, Austin warned. If he gets an emergency court order, he could show up with police and claim immediate risk. They're not laying a hand on them, Luke growled. Calm down, Austin said, his voice steady. We'll use our heads. I need you 3 out of town while I prepare our defense. Out of town? James asked. I have a property in the next county, Austin said. Secluded. Safe. Only people I trust know it. I'm going with them, Andrew said instantly. I won't leave my grandparents again. Aurora's eyes filled with pride. My brave boy. You have the courage your father lost. Andrew smiled faintly. I learned it from you. They made a plan. Susan would drive out first for her regular shopping run to distract attention. An hour later, James, Aurora, and Andrew would slip out through the back garage in Austin's car. It worked perfectly. The watchers never noticed. Luke stayed behind, ready to face whatever came next. By late afternoon, the storm broke again, not of rain, but of confrontation. Ryan arrived with 2 sheriff's deputies, a doctor Luke had never seen, and Beatrice, her face pale and ashamed. "Where are my parents?" Ryan demanded the moment Luke opened the door. "In a safe place," Luke replied evenly, "far from a son who wishes them harm." Ryan smirked. "You have no right to hide them. I have a court order for emergency medical evaluation." One deputy handed Luke the paper. "Alleged risk to the senior's safety," he read. "What risk?" Luke asked coldly. "The petitioner claims confusion and potential self-harm," the doctor added, avoiding his eyes. "That's a lie, and you know it," Luke said, glaring at Ryan. "It's true," Ryan insisted. "They need specialized care." "Specialized care," Luke shot back. "Or you need control over their estate." Ryan's composure cracked. "What are you implying?" Luke stepped closer. "I'm talking about the land worth $20 million. Land you can only access if you get guardianship." Silence filled the hall. The deputies exchanged uneasy glances. "I don't know what you're talking about," Ryan said, but his voice had lost its power. "I know everything," Luke said. "The bribed doctors, the fake reports, the forged evaluations." Beatrice suddenly stepped forward, trembling. "Ryan, stop. I can't pretend anymore." "Be quiet," he hissed. "I won't," she shouted, tears streaking down her face. "Your parents are kind, generous people, and you're trying to destroy them for money." "You don't understand," he snapped. "I understand perfectly," she said. "You're blinded by greed." One of the deputies cleared his throat. "Sir," he said to Ryan, "if there's any hint of fraud, we must reconsider this order." "There's no fraud," Ryan barked. "Oh, there is," Luke said, handing over copies of Andrew's documents. "Proof of inheritance, of your lies, and of your manipulation." The deputy read silently, his face hardening. Then he looked up. "Mr. Sanders, this suggests you may have committed fraud on the court." "That's a lie," Ryan shouted. "A setup." "A setup?" Beatrice gave a bitter laugh. "You're calling your own son a liar?" Ryan's head jerked. "Andrew?" "Yes," Luke said. "Your son found the documents. He couldn't live with what you've become." "Where is he?" "With his grandparents," Luke answered. "Where he belongs." The deputy folded the papers. "We're suspending this order pending investigation." "You can't," Ryan shouted. "We can, and we will," the deputy said coldly. "Fraud on the court is a serious crime." The doctor tried to slip away, but Luke stepped in his path. "Doctor, you're not going anywhere." I didn't know," the man stammered. "You didn't know you were falsifying medical reports?" Luke demanded. "You didn't know you were helping destroy innocent people?" The doctor hung his head. "I'm sorry." Beatrice wiped her tears. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "may I speak to my in-laws? I want to ask their forgiveness." Luke's anger melted a little. "Of course. They'll be glad to know your heart's in the right place." Ryan stood frozen, his empire of lies collapsing. His wife had turned, his son was gone, and the law was closing in. "Ryan," Luke said, quiet but firm, "there's still time. Your parents still love you. Ask for forgiveness." Ryan's eyes darted away. "It's too late," he murmured. "It's never too late," Luke said. "Not for a son to come home." But Ryan turned and walked out, chased by his own guilt and the sound of his wife's quiet sobbing. Luke called Austin immediately. The lawyer listened carefully, then sighed in relief. "Good work," he said. "The investigation will protect them. For now, Ryan's finished." A few days later, James, Aurora, and Andrew returned. Their faces were tired, but full of hope. The mansion seemed lighter with them inside. For a brief time, peace returned. Morning tea on the veranda, soft piano music echoing through the halls, laughter in the kitchen. Luke found himself smiling again, something he'd forgotten how to do. Then one morning, Austin arrived with grim news. "Luke," he said, setting down a thick file, "we have a problem." Luke's heart sank. "He's back, isn't he?" "Yes," Austin said. "Ryan hasn't given up. That inheritance is even bigger than we thought. Some powerful investors are involved now. He's bringing in top lawyers and a famous psychiatrist to testify your parents are mentally unfit." "That's impossible," Andrew cried. "My grandparents are sharp as ever." "We know," Austin said. "But they'll use age, illness, lost assets, anything to build their case. We need something stronger than sympathy." James stood, walked to the window, and stared out at the garden. "There's something I've never told anyone," he said quietly. "James?" Aurora asked, worried. He took a long breath. "That land wasn't my grandfather's. It was my grandmother's, Bernarde's. She left a secret will. Ryan doesn't know about it." Austin leaned forward. "A secret will?" James nodded. "She suspected the men in the family only cared about money. So she made 2 wills. The public one left everything to them. The secret one left it to whoever dedicated their life to helping others." "Where is it?" Austin asked. "In a bank safe deposit box," James said. "Only I can open it." Aurora's voice broke. "James, that means Ryan's been fighting for something that was never his." "Yes," James said, his eyes distant. "By Bernarde's will, the land belongs to the one who served humanity, and that's me." Luke felt both relief and dread. "If Ryan finds out," he warned, "he'll try to block you." James nodded solemnly. "Then we must protect the truth before he does." The morning sky over the Carter estate was heavy with tension. Clouds pressed low, thick and gray. The kind of sky that warned a storm was close, not of weather, but of fate. Inside the study, the air was no lighter. Austin Lemons laid a folder on the desk. "Then we go to the bank today," he said firmly. "We can't waste another hour." Andrew frowned. "That won't be easy," he said, glancing toward the window. "Dad has people watching, everywhere we go." As if to confirm his words, Susan hurried in, her face pale, holding out a phone. "Mr. Carter, urgent call." Luke took the phone and turned slightly away, his tone brisk. "Carter speaking." A pause, then his face changed. "What? Are you sure?" Everyone in the room froze. Luke lowered the phone slowly. "That was my contact at the bank," he said grimly. "Ryan showed up this morning. He had a temporary court order to access James's deposit box." James gripped the armrest. "Did he get in?" Luke shook his head. "No. The order was flawed. But my contact said he'll be back soon with one that isn't." Aurora squeezed her husband's hand. "He won't stop," she whispered. "No, he won't," Luke agreed. "Which means we have to move first." James turned to Aurora, his expression shifting from fear to something deeper. Resolve. "My love," he said softly, "it's time to tell the whole truth." Aurora's lips trembled. She looked at him, her eyes already shining with unshed tears. "What truth, Grandpa?" Andrew asked, his voice full of concern. Aurora inhaled slowly, her chest rising with effort. "Andrew, my condition isn't just serious." She paused, steadying her voice. "It's terminal." The words hit like thunder. Andrew's eyes widened in shock. Luke felt the world tilt. "Terminal?" Luke repeated quietly, as if hoping he'd misheard. Aurora nodded calmly, almost serenely. "The doctors gave me only a few months," she said. "That's why we sold everything. That's why we lost the house. We spent all we had on experimental treatments. I wanted more time. With your grandfather. With you." "Grandma," Andrew choked, tears rising. James closed his eyes, his hand trembling as he held hers. "That's why Ryan's in such a hurry," he said bitterly. "He knows Aurora doesn't have long. If he can prove we're incapacitated before she passes, he gets everything." Luke slammed his hand on the desk. "We're not letting that happen, not while I'm standing." Austin raised a hand. "Luke, wait. It's risky to confront him head-on. We need a strategy." "Riskier to let him win," Luke said. "We're going to the bank now." They moved quickly. The plan was simple. Austin would take James to the bank. Luke would stay with Aurora and Andrew to draw attention away. Susan would leave through the front gate with shopping bags to create a diversion. Every step felt like walking on glass. The car carrying Austin and James disappeared down the hill, its tires hissing against wet pavement. Luke stood at the window, hands clenched behind his back, watching. Aurora sat quietly on the couch, her breathing shallow. "Grandma," Andrew said softly, kneeling beside her, "you should rest." "I'll rest soon," she said gently. "But not yet. Not until this is over." Luke turned toward her. "You're stronger than any of us," he said. Aurora smiled faintly. "No, Luke. I just believe that kindness always finds its way home, even if it takes a lifetime." 2 hours later, Luke's phone rang again. He answered on the first buzz. "Austin?" The lawyer's voice was tight. "Luke, we were late." Luke felt his stomach drop. "What happened?" "Ryan came back with a new order. Stronger, signed by another judge. He convinced the manager James was hospitalized with acute dementia. They opened the box without him." James's voice cracked through the speaker. "Austin, was the will there?" Austin's silence said it all. Then quietly, "It was. Ryan took everything." Despair filled the room like smoke. Aurora covered her face, tears breaking free. Andrew kicked the table leg in frustration. "He stole it all. Now he'll twist everything." "Wait," Aurora said suddenly, sitting up straight. Her eyes were bright with sudden memory. "James, remember the photocopy we made 20 years ago?" James blinked. "Photocopy?" "The one we kept in the old suitcase," she said urgently. "The one with our documents." They all looked at each other, then ran. The guest room smelled faintly of cedar and lavender. Aurora pulled open the closet with shaking hands. At the bottom was the old leather suitcase, edges frayed, handle cracked. She fell to her knees and unzipped it. Inside were folders, newspaper clippings, photos of charity events long forgotten. Come on," she whispered, rifling through papers until her trembling fingers found a plastic sleeve sealed with tape. Inside it, a thin, yellowed paper, a copy of the secret will. "Here," she cried, holding it up. "Here it is." Austin rushed back minutes later. When he saw the document, his eyes widened. "You found it," he breathed. Aurora nodded. tears of relief streaming down. "This changes everything," Austin said, scanning the notarized stamp. "Even if Ryan has the original, this proves there was another will, one he tried to suppress." Andrew leaned over. "He'll call it a forgery." "He can't," Austin said, smiling grimly. "It's got a 30-year-old county clerk's notarization. Perfectly legal, perfectly binding." Just then, the sound of tires screeching outside shattered the calm. Luke turned toward the window, and his blood ran cold. Cars. More of them this time. Black SUVs, polished and official, pulling up one by one. Ryan had returned. The front doors burst open before anyone could react. Ryan Sanders stormed in, flanked by deputies, attorneys, and behind them, an ambulance crew waiting like silent vultures. "Dad, Mom," he said coldly, voice dripping contempt. "It's over. I'm taking you in." Aurora rose slowly, her body frail but her eyes proud. "We're not going anywhere." Ryan's tone sharpened. "You don't have a choice anymore. A judge has ordered your immediate commitment based on irrefutable medical evaluations." "Bogus evaluations," Austin said, stepping forward. "We have evidence those doctors never examined your parents. Not once." "That's a lie," Ryan snapped. "It's the truth," Luke said firmly. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out the folded document. "And we have another surprise for you." Ryan froze when he saw the paper. Luke opened it slowly, the sound of the plastic crackling loud in the silent room. "Recognize this?" he asked. Ryan's face drained of color. "Where did you get that?" "From the same old suitcase you despised," Luke said, his eyes steady. "Your great-grandmother's secret will. The one leaving everything to whoever devoted their life to helping others." Ryan's jaw tightened. "It's a forgery." "With a 30-year-old notarization," Austin said coolly. "You've lost, Ryan. The land was never yours." "Impossible!" Ryan exploded, his voice cracking. "That land belongs to me. I earned it." "Earned it?" Aurora said softly, her frail voice cutting through the chaos. "You earn love, Ryan. You don't steal it." Before Ryan could respond, another voice came from behind the deputies. "Ryan," it said, calm but firm. Everyone turned. Beatrice stood in the doorway, dressed simply, rolling a suitcase beside her. She didn't look like a woman defeated. She looked free. "I'm here for Andrew," she said. Ryan blinked. "What?" "I'm taking him with me," she said. "He's coming to live with me." Ryan's voice rose, desperate. "Are you crazy? Andrew is my son." Beatrice met his eyes with quiet steel. "Andrew is a young man ashamed of his father, and so am I." "Beatrice." "No," she said sharply. "I filed for divorce this morning, and I'll testify against you." The words hit like a gunshot. The deputies exchanged looks. Then one stepped forward. "Mr. Sanders," he said, tone professional but cold. "You'll need to come with us and answer for fraud on the court." Ryan's eyes darted wildly. "No, you don't understand. I need that money." James stepped forward, his expression one of deep sadness. "For what, Ryan? To buy what you don't have?" Ryan's voice cracked. "Respect. Admiration. Success." Aurora shook her head slowly. "My son, those things can't be bought. They're earned, the way we earned ours." Ryan gave a bitter laugh. "By helping everyone else and ending up homeless?" Aurora's smile was soft, but unbreakable. "We ended up with love, Ryan. With respect from the people who matter. Tell me, do you have that?" Ryan looked around. His lawyers avoided his eyes. The deputies waited silently. Even Beatrice and Andrew stood apart. No one was on his side anymore. "Ryan," James said gently, "there's still time to choose differently." But the deputies took him by the arm. As they led him out, he shouted hollow threats that echoed down the hallway and faded into silence. When the house quieted, the tension finally broke. Andrew turned to his grandparents and hugged them tightly. "Grandma, Grandpa, I'm sorry," he whispered through tears. "Sorry to have a father like that." Aurora stroked his hair gently. "Son, you're not responsible for his choices. Only for your own." Beatrice stepped closer, eyes downcast. "Please forgive me," she said. "I should have acted sooner." James smiled kindly. "Courage isn't the absence of fear, my dear. It's doing what's right even when you're afraid." Weeks passed. The court validated Bernardet's secret will. Ryan faced multiple charges: fraud, perjury, abuse of power. The story spread quietly through the legal community, and soon, no one wanted to be in Ryan Sanders's corner. The land, 124 acres of prime city property, now legally belonged to James Sanders. But what he did next surprised everyone. One bright morning, sunlight streamed across the breakfast table where James sat, surrounded by maps and blueprints. "Aura," he said, turning to his wife, "it's time for our last big project." Aurora, now receiving the best medical care Luke could provide, looked radiant despite her frailty. "Have you decided what to do with the land?" she asked. "We have," James said, spreading the plans. The papers showed designs for homes, gardens, schools, and clinics. "We'll build a supportive community, the largest in the country. Homes for struggling families, a hospital, a school, a cultural center, a place where hope never runs out." Andrew leaned forward, eyes wide with excitement. "Grandpa, that's incredible. We could call it Aurora Village, in Grandma's honor." Aurora gasped softly, tears filling her eyes. "Aurora Village," she whispered. "Beautiful." "It will house 500 families," James said proudly. "Each home will bear the name of a child we once helped." Susan entered quietly, smiling as she placed a tray of coffee. She had become part of the family now, no longer a housekeeper, but a companion. "Mr. Carter," she said softly, "there's a visitor, a young woman with a baby. She says she must see Mr. James urgently." James exchanged puzzled looks with Aurora and Luke, then went to the door. A woman stood there, clutching an infant. Tears streaked her face. "Mr. James?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes?" "I'm Maya Scott," she said. "You saved my life 15 years ago." James studied her face. Then his eyes widened. "Maya, from St. Francis Children's Home. My goodness, look at you." She nodded, crying, "Now." "I came to thank you for giving me a chance when no one else believed in me. This is my son, Gabrielle. I wanted you to meet the grandson you earned." Aurora covered her mouth, sobbing softly. James's hands shook as he took the baby gently into his arms. "What do you do now, Maya?" he asked. "I'm a pediatrician," she said proudly. "I work in a public hospital, saving children, like you taught me." Luke stepped closer, moved beyond words. "Dr. Scott," he said respectfully, "I have a proposal. Would you be the medical director of Aurora Village Hospital?" Maya blinked, stunned. Aurora smiled through tears. "We're asking because we know you'll do it with love. The same love that once saved you." Maya's voice broke. "I accept," she said. "It would be an honor to carry your legacy." Another car pulled up outside. Beatrice stepped out, not alone this time. Beside her stood a man Luke didn't know. "Mom!" Andrew exclaimed, running to hug her. "Andrew," she said, smiling through tears. "Everyone, this is Dr. Philip Hayes, my fiancé." "Welcome to the family," James said warmly, shaking the man's hand. Beatrice took a breath. "I also bring news about Ryan." Everyone fell silent. "He's in prison," she said softly. "Convicted of fraud. But he sent a letter." She handed it to Aurora, who unfolded it with trembling hands. "What does he say?" James asked quietly. Aurora read aloud, her voice breaking. "He says he wants forgiveness, that he finally understands the value of what we built, and he's ashamed." Beatrice looked at them carefully. "Will you visit him?" James met Aurora's eyes. Their silent language spoke volumes. "We will," James said. Aurora nodded gently. "He's still our son." "Even after everything?" Beatrice asked. "Especially after everything," Aurora replied. "Forgiveness isn't for those who deserve it. It's for those who need it." Days later, they visited the prison. The man who greeted them was not the proud, bitter lawyer from before. He was thinner now, gray at the temples, eyes hollow, but sincere. "Dad," Ryan whispered. The iron door of the prison creaked open with a low, heavy sound. Inside, cold light spilled over the gray floor and the worn faces of two elderly parents who had come not to accuse, but to forgive. Ryan stood behind the bars, thinner, older, and carrying the weight of all his mistakes. His hands trembled as he gripped the railing. When he finally spoke, his voice broke. "Mom," he whispered, eyes glistening, "I don't even know how to ask for forgiveness." Aurora smiled softly. Her frail hands rested on the metal bars, her eyes full of peace. "Start from the heart, son," she said gently. "That's where forgiveness always begins." Ryan swallowed hard. "I was obsessed with money," he said, words tumbling out. "With status, approval, appearances. I thought success was everything, but I lost sight of what mattered. I lost you. I lost my family. I lost myself." James's voice was calm but strong. "You didn't lose us, Ryan. We were always here." Tears rolled down Ryan's cheeks. "How can you forgive me after all I did?" "Because you're our son," Aurora said simply. "A parent's love has no conditions." "I don't deserve it," Ryan said, shaking his head. James smiled faintly. "No one deserves forgiveness, son. It isn't earned. It's a gift we give because we love." Ryan broke down. "I want to change," he wept. "I want to be the son you deserve." Andrew, standing quietly nearby, stepped forward. His voice trembled as he spoke. "You already are, Dad," he said, hugging him through the bars for the first time in years. "Owning your mistakes is the first step." Luke stepped closer, his tone warm but firm. "Ryan," he said, "when you get out, there's a place for you at Aurora Village. We have a lot of work to do." Ryan stared in disbelief. "You'd give me that chance?" James nodded. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he said. "Especially family." And so, in that cold prison cell, a broken family was rebuilt. Not with walls of pride, but with the strongest foundation of all: true forgiveness. A year passed. Where weeds once grew, now stood homes painted in bright colors: blue, yellow, soft green, their gardens blooming with flowers. The air carried the laughter of children. Aurora Village had risen, exactly as James and Aurora dreamed. 500 homes now sheltered families who had once lost hope. The hospital, led by Dr. Maya Scott, had already saved hundreds of children. The school ran from dawn till dusk, and the cultural center buzzed with art, music, and joy. On dedication day, thousands gathered: mayors, governors, business leaders, but mostly ordinary people. Families who had been saved by kindness. Children who owed their futures to love. James stepped to the microphone, voice trembling. "Friends," he began, looking at the vast crowd, "this village isn't our achievement. It's yours. Every one of you who believed we could build a better world." Aurora, standing beside him, frail but radiant, took the microphone. "Aurora Village," she said softly, "stands for what we learned. Real happiness comes from helping others. Family is built with love, not blood, and it is never too late to begin again." The crowd erupted in applause, some crying openly. Then, to everyone's surprise, Ryan approached the stage. His steps were slow but sure. Prison had changed him. His shoulders no longer carried arrogance, only humility. His eyes shone with purpose. "Dad, Mom," he said publicly, voice thick with emotion, "I spent my life chasing success in the wrong places. Today I know you were always the richest people in our family. Rich in love, rich in purpose, rich in legacy." Applause thundered across the field. Andrew cried openly. Beatrice and Dr. Hayes stood together, proud. Maya held little Gabriel, smiling through tears. Susan, standing at the edge of the crowd, wiped her eyes quietly. Luke stepped forward next. "James and Aurora saved me when I was a child," he said. "And they saved me again when I was a lost man. Through Aurora Village, they'll keep saving lives long after we're gone. But our greatest victory isn't this place." He turned to the elderly couple, his eyes shining. "It's proving that real family is chosen by who we love, who we protect, and who we forgive." The crowd rose to its feet, clapping, cheering, crying. When the event ended, James and Aurora walked hand in hand through the streets of the village they had built from ashes. Children played in gardens, families gathered on porches, and elderly couples rested in the leafy squares. "We did it, my love," James said softly. "We fulfilled our mission." Aurora smiled gently. "No, James. Our mission doesn't end with us. It continues with everyone here, everyone who learned to help others." Dr. Hayes approached quietly. He was now more than Beatrice's husband. He had become Aurora's personal physician. Concern and tenderness mingled in his eyes. "Mrs. Aurora, how are you feeling?" "Tired, doctor," she said. "But happy. Very happy." He exchanged a look with James, both men understanding that time was growing short. Still, Aurora had insisted on attending the dedication, no matter the cost. "Grandma," Andrew said, unfolding a chair, "do you want to sit a bit?" "Thank you, sweetheart," she said, easing down. "You've grown into such a good man." "I had the best teachers," Andrew said, kissing her forehead. Maya came rushing over, still in her hospital coat. "Aunt Aurora," she said, breathless with joy. "We just admitted our 10th child this month. A 5-year-old girl with the same heart condition Gabriel had. She's going to be all right." Aurora smiled through tears. "Every child saved is a victory, Maya. You honor everything we built." "I try every day," Maya said softly. Susan appeared next, carrying a tray of tea. "Mrs. Aurora," she said gently, "your tea, just the way you like it." Aurora took her hand. "Susan, you became more than a housekeeper. You became family." Susan smiled warmly. "And you became family to me. You taught me that family isn't who we're born with. It's who we grow with." Luke stood a few feet away, watching them with emotion tightening his throat. The scene summed up everything he had learned. Family wasn't about DNA. It was about daily choices of love, kindness, and forgiveness. Beatrice and Dr. Hayes returned later that afternoon, carrying a large leather album. "I made this for you," Beatrice said, handing it to Aurora. Aurora opened it, and the first photo brought a smile. The pages were filled with pictures of Aurora Village being built, families moving in, children laughing, workers celebrating. "It's the story of what you created," Beatrice said, her eyes glistening. James turned each page carefully, each photograph a story of transformation. "Thank you, Beatrice," he said softly. "You've become the daughter we always dreamed of." Beatrice's smile trembled. "And you've become the parents I always needed." Ryan joined them then, walking quietly. Though a year had passed, the weight of guilt still lingered on his face. But his steps were steadier, his voice stronger. "Dad, may I sit?" he asked. "Of course, son," James said, patting the bench. Ryan sat beside him. "Today, while I was coordinating programs, a woman came up to me crying. She said you saved her grandson 20 years ago at one of your shelters." "How did that make you feel?" Aurora asked softly. "Proud," Ryan said simply. "For the first time in my life. Truly proud to be your son." James reached over and squeezed his shoulder. "We've always been proud of you, Ryan, even when you couldn't see your own worth." Ryan nodded, tears glimmering. "Yesterday," he said, "a developer offered me $5 million for the land under the cultural center." "And?" James asked. "I refused on the spot." Aurora smiled. "You finally learned some things aren't for sale." "I did," Ryan said. "I learned you were right all along. Money runs out, but the good we do remains." Andrew came over holding little Gabriel, who was toddling now. "He took his first steps today," he announced proudly. "Really?" Aurora gasped. "Yes." He walked straight to the photo of his great-great-grandparents. Aurora opened her arms, and Andrew gently placed the child in her lap. The baby giggled and reached for her necklace, babbling softly. Aurora kissed his forehead. "My little one," she whispered. "You're going to grow up in a better world. One that understands love is the only wealth that matters." Maya approached again, concern shadowing her smile. "Aunt Aurora, you're very pale. We should go home." "Not yet, dear," Aurora said, her eyes fixed on the sunset. "I want to see the sun fall over our village one last time." The sky turned to gold as the sun dipped low, painting the rooftops in warm light. The lamps flickered on, one by one, like earthbound stars lighting up a dream made real. "You know what makes me proudest?" James asked quietly, eyes glistening. "What, my love?" "That when we leave this world," he said, "we'll leave it better than we found it. And we'll leave knowing we were truly loved." Aurora leaned against him, her voice faint but peaceful. "That's all I ever wanted." Luke stepped closer, his eyes wet. "James, Aurora, you changed not just my life, but everyone's here. You taught me that success isn't measured in what we own, but in how many lives we touch." Aurora smiled, reaching for his hand. "Luke, you were the son we never had. Thank you for giving us a family when we needed it most." Dr. Hayes moved closer. "Sir," he said gently, "we should take her home. She needs rest." James nodded, though his heart felt heavy. Aurora was frail, yet her eyes still shone with peace. "Friends," she said softly, trying to stand, "it's time to go home." "Our house," Luke corrected gently. "Our family," she whispered back with a smile. They walked slowly through the glowing streets, Aurora pausing for one last look at the village that now pulsed with life. "James," she said, gazing up at the night sky. "Remember that stormy night when Luke found us?" "How could I forget?" he said, his voice breaking. "I knew then that something special would happen. It wasn't coincidence." "It wasn't," James said, tightening his grip on her hand. "It was destiny, returning all the love we sowed." 2 weeks later, Aurora passed away in her sleep, peaceful, serene, and surrounded by love. The city mourned. Thousands attended her funeral. Families she had fed, children she had saved, doctors, teachers, workers, and business owners. Every life she had touched stood together that day. James spoke with a trembling voice. "Aurora used to say, 'We don't die when the heart stops beating. We die when people stop remembering us.' She'll never die, because every smile she inspired, every child she saved, carries her forward." At the center of Aurora Village, they built a garden square with a marble bench engraved with her words. "Here rests the one who taught that love is the only inheritance worth leaving." James continued to live with Luke, now surrounded by a family that love had built. Ryan visited every day, dedicating his life to social projects. Andrew graduated as an architect and designed new expansions for Aurora Village. Maya saved children's lives daily at the hospital. Beatrice and Dr. Hayes married and adopted a child from the village. Susan became the doting grandmother little Gabriel had never had, telling him bedtime stories about great-grandma Aurora, whose love lingered in every wall and garden of that place. Luke, walking the halls at night, finally understood. He had found what he had searched for all his life. Not riches, not glory, but a family built on unconditional love and endless forgiveness. At the entrance to Aurora Village stood a simple bronze plaque. "Here live people who learned that true wealth isn't what we keep, but what we give. Family isn't who we're born with, but who chooses to stay. And love, once planted, blooms forever." On another rainy night, a night that felt like the first, Luke walked the glowing streets of Aurora Village. Laughter echoed through open windows. Lanterns swayed gently in the rain. He stopped beneath the archway where Aurora's name was carved and looked around. Every home light was a reminder, every sound of joy a heartbeat of her legacy. The story of James and Aurora Sanders wasn't written in money, but in hearts transformed, in the endless echo of kindness passed from one soul to another. And that legacy, that love, would never fade. Thank you for watching. This was Kairo Tales.